Well, good morning. I'm Cindy Nellis. I'm the director here at the Penn West Clarion Small Business Development Center, and we welcome you to today's workshop on OSHA personal protective equipment. This particular training is designed to educate workers on the proper selection, use, maintenance, and disposal of personal protective equipment in the workplace. PPE, as we call it, refers to specialized clothing or equipment worn by employees for protection against various occupational hazards, such as chemical, physical, electrical, mechanical, or biological hazards. Before we get started, I just want to thank OSHA for the partnership that we have. Penn West Clarion Small Business Development Center and Gannon University Small Business Development Center has joined with OSHA. We've created an alliance that enables us to collaborate and bring training to you. And so if there is a specific topic that you're looking for, we would be happy to entertain your ideas. We always look every year to find out what topics you're looking for so that we can select the trainings that you want to see. And we do have additional trainings coming up. And so after today, I'll be sending out a link to the next event that we have, which off the top of my head right now, I'm not sure about. If you just a couple logistics, if you have a question for your presenters today, please enter them in the Q&A. We're going to do our best to answer all the questions, but if we're not, of course, we will follow up with additional information later. If you have a question for me, your host, we'd ask that you enter that into the chat window. And we are recording today's webinar, and we will share the recording along with the slides that you see. All right, well, let's get started. I want to introduce you to the Pennsylvania Small Business Development Center. We are a grant-funded program with a mission truly to help businesses start, grow, and prosper. What we do is we provide education through our one-on-one business consulting services. We provide information and tools that help you, our business owners, and key managers make better business decisions. So our business consulting services are provided at no cost, and they're confidential. We also provide training, and those training topics do vary depending on the needs of our small business owners. And they are at no cost, like today. Some do have a small fee, and our formats, we offer them virtual, like today. We offer them on demand, and we also offer them live and in person, and sometimes a combination of both. Like I said, we have a lot of great tools and resources that you can access just by signing up and becoming a client with the Small Business Development Center. Those tools and resources typically target industry research, as well as marketing strategies, market research, and things like that. We also have a lot of great guides, forms, and templates too for you to use. So if you are interested in exploring and possibly talking through some challenges or interests that you have in growing your business, I would encourage you to definitely reach out to the Small Business Development Center. And to identify which SBDC is closest to you, I provide this map. The map shows the institutions of higher education that host a Small Business Development Center in Pennsylvania. So I'm one of 15 centers, and we are able to provide our services at no cost because of our grant funding through the Small Business Administration, through the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, as well as support from our host institution here at Penn West Clarion. And again, we are also co-hosted today by Gannon. And so I just want to make sure that I mention that Gannon University definitely supports their center in a large way. And finally, a program that may be something that is helpful to you is WEDNet. So my center is a WEDNet partner. We are the WEDNet PA partner. WEDNET stands for Workforce and Economic Development Network, and it is a funding program to help companies stay competitive by keeping your employees' skills and talents up to speed. So your business needs to qualify for this particular funding, your employee needs to qualify, and the training needs to qualify. However, if all of that lines up, there can potentially be up to $2,000 of funding per employee for you. So if any of that is something that you want to look into, I encourage you to go to wednetpa.com, submit an inquiry, select Penn West Clarion as your targeted WEDNET partner, and we will start working with you to identify the funding availability as well as training. Okay, so this is our information here at Penn West Clarion, as well as the Gannon University Small Business Development Center contact information. You are welcome to reach out to either one of us with any of your questions moving forward. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to our speakers. Mark Harmon is the Compliance Assistant Specialist with the Federal OSHA Erie Area Office, and David Yanoschick is the Outreach Coordinator, the SHARP Outreach Coordinator, which stands for Safety and Health Achievement Recognition Program. He is with the Pennsylvania OSHA Consultation Program, and that program is hosted at the Indiana University of Pennsylvania. So I will turn it over to both Mark and David. And we just are thankful that you are all here, and hope you enjoyed today's webinar.
Thank you, Cindy. Good morning and welcome. We are set today to do another OSHA session. The topic that we've selected is the personal protective equipment subpart I. This will be from the 1910 OSHA standards, which apply to general industry, the manufacturing sectors, things that would fall under that particular OSHA book. I did include a few things I think that would be important on today's topic. The web page for personal protective equipment on the OSHA website, I included in the chat window. I also included the compliance directive that was written for personal protective equipment. It will have many pieces to the presentation today that would be helpful to you if you have the opportunity after the session today to look at and read through that document. I believe that would help you further understand the topic. I also included the small business handbook, which we always try to provide that information for small businesses so that they can comply with OSHA standards. The presentation today, I believe we've done this in years past. There are a few updates that I have included, so we're just going to jump right into it. But if you do have questions, please put those questions in the chat, and as Cindy said, we'll try to answer those as we go today. Let's go to the next slide. The agenda today, the first slide, I believe, does have a short video which is on personal protective equipment. It was put together by our friends at the Consultation Service, Pennsylvania Consultation. That's who Dave works for. I don't know if we'll have time to look at that today, but again, the link to that video is included. The videos that they provide are usually helpful. They're short, usually under 10 minutes, but again, specific to the topic. It's very helpful. Again, people who have the responsibility for safety and health at their company, this again being an education session, it would be useful to you to get a better understanding of what personal protective equipment is, how it would be applied in the work setting. So any of the videos that they have would be useful if that is the information that you are looking for. After that, we would jump into what's known as the hierarchy of controls. This is, I hope, something that is not new to you, but if it is, it will give you an understanding of safety and health protection in the workplace, how OSHA as a regulatory agency looks at hazards, and what methods we would use in order to control those methods. We will talk about hazard assessment. That is something very specific to personal protective equipment. It would be the company's responsibility to conduct a hazard assessment to determine what hazards are in your work environment. We'll talk about training and the training that would be required for any employee that may be using personal protective equipment. And then as we finish the PowerPoint, we'll go through the various types of personal protective equipment that may be used in your workplace. Let's go to the next one. As I said, this video, I know years ago we found videos were helpful in education, and this happened to be one that I found to be very helpful. It was, as I said, put together by our friends at the Pennsylvania OSHA Consultation. I believe they have a series called Focal Points. And again, it appears to be about a 7.5 minute video. The first minute or so is just the introduction. But as I said, it will go through the main parts to particular OSHA topics. And I know they have more than a dozen of these types of videos on things related to OSHA, regulatory issues. And again, I would encourage you at the link there on the bottom to go to that, watch that video. It could be actually used even from a standpoint of a training session at your company. But again, we're hoping to provide you education or resources so that this may be helpful to you and your company. Let's go to the next slide. Protecting employers from workplace hazards. The employer must protect employees from workplace hazards such as machines, work procedures, and hazardous substances that can cause injury. The employer must use all feasible engineering and workplace controls to eliminate and reduce hazards, and only then may they use appropriate PPE if these controls do not eliminate the hazards. So I guess that's the part I would point out, that personal protective equipment is your last level of support to protect a worker. And as we go through the slides today, I hope that becomes more understood, that using personal protective equipment, although it is appropriate and important, that should not be the first way in which you try to eliminate a hazard in the workplace. And we'll have many examples today to explain that. So PPE is your last level of support. So let's go to the next slide. This will show our hierarchy of controls. And again, this is something that you learn when you are sitting in safety class and you're learning about safety and health. I know many years ago, sitting in college classes, they would talk about safety and health theory and how do we protect people in work environments. This is one of the things, the hierarchy controls, you should very much understand. And in looking at it, as you can see, it is a upside down pyramid. And as you can see at the very top over on the far left, it says most effective. And if you come down to the bottom on the lower left, it says least effective. So looking at how the hierarchy of controls works, the first thing you should always consider is elimination. As you can see, that's at the very top of our upside down pyramid. It says elimination means to physically remove the hazard. And then as you work your way down, the second choice would be or substitution. That means you're replacing the hazard with perhaps something that's less hazardous. The third choice is engineering controls. Engineering controls can take many forms, but again, it is a way to isolate the worker from the hazard. The fourth choice would perhaps be administrative controls. This is a way that we would change the way people work. And then the last choice at the very bottom, as I said, that is always your last or your least effective, by using personal protective equipment. So why is PPE at the very bottom? Hopefully today I'll be able to explain that. But if you can imagine a hazard, and we'll show some examples here in some of the slides as we go through, just by putting someone in personal protective equipment, there are many factors that go into, well, is that PPE actually protecting the worker? So again, if it's an example of, say, hearing protection, okay, if you work in an environment and your workplace has a noise issue, right? It's very loud. There's machinery that's running and it's very loud. So obviously that would be a hazard to the worker due to the fact you could have hearing loss over a period of time. People could lose their ability to hear. So if that to be the case, if you just simply put the workers in personal protective equipment, whether it's earplugs, muffs, number one, you have to make sure that the employee is wearing it. And also with personal protective equipment, you also have to ensure that the employee is wearing it correctly. So just in that simple example with noise and putting people in hearing protection, it would be more effective if you just try to eliminate the noise in the workplace. So again, that's a very simple or rudimentary example of what we're talking about when we say the hierarchy of controls. You should always think first on, is it possible to eliminate the hazard and not just simply put people in PPE to protect them. The link there at the bottom, that actually there's a worksheet that OSHA has, and it'll explain in more detail about the hierarchy of controls. There's a link to that on that slide. If that would be helpful to you, I would add that you could download that and look at it, or have a copy of it to talk about in your workplace. Let's go to the next slide. Elimination. So we'll go further into to describe some of these. Elimination, if the hazard is eliminated, then the employees are not exposed. Let's go to the next one. Examples of elimination could be ending the use of a hazardous material. So think of a hazardous material that you may have in your workplace, and instead of having people exposed to it, you have the ability to, hey, we no longer have to use, or we no longer need to use this hazardous material. So that would be a way of eliminating the hazard. You could also do work at ground level rather than at height. Another example could be you could stop the use of a noisy process. So again, always think about elimination first. And again, if it is not possible to eliminate the hazard, then you should go to the second choice on the hierarchy of controls. Let's go to the next one, which is substitution, right? Substitution is the material or the process can be changed. Then the hazard can be reduced or replaced with a material or ingredient or a piece of equipment which is less dangerous. And again, many of these, I guess I could think of examples for. I know just recently, I believe one of the weed killers that I believe we all have either used or purchased. I won't name the weed killer, but I believe it was actually recently discovered to be a carcinogen, right? Meaning that it is now known to cause cancer. Okay, that's a good example of, okay, well, if we're using this particular product and we know that it is a carcinogen, something that would cause cancer, perhaps we could look at another product that would still be able to, in this example, kill the weeds that we need to kill, but it would not be so hazardous to the worker. So again, substitution, right? You're using something that would be less hazardous. Let's go to the next slide. Examples could be, as I said, switching to a less hazardous chemical or material, or it could be switching to a process that uses less force, less speed, or less temperature. Again, you're substituting what would be a hazard for something that would be less hazardous. Let's go to the next slide. Engineering controls. This is probably one of the ones where people really consider how to control hazards in their workplace by protecting the workers by the use of engineering controls. So again, if the machine or work environment can be physically changed to prevent employees' exposure to the hazard, then the hazard has been eliminated with an engineering control. Next slide. The example would be initial design specification. So again, if you can think of how the process will work and you can design that so that you're protecting the workers, that would be a way of engineering out the hazard. This could be applicable to like ventilation, enclosing the process, or perhaps isolating the process. A good example of engineering controls would be like machine guarding, right? If you can guard the machine to protect the worker, that would be an example of engineering controls. Let's go to the next slide. Administrative controls. Sometimes people don't think about controlling hazards through the use of administrative controls. If an employee can be removed from exposure to the potential hazard by changing the way they do their work, then the hazard has been eliminated with a administrative control. An example of that would be, next slide, job rotation, right? So think of a job rotation schedule to where if you have an employee doing something for a period of time, think of repetitive stress. If somebody is, working on an assembly line and they're doing one particular job for 8 hours a day, that can be that can cause the worker to be stressed, that can cause the worker to be overworked. So job rotation has been a way in which administrative controls can be applied to reduce the exposure. So having someone work perhaps at one end of the production line part of the day, and then in the afternoon, they work on another part. Again, you're putting people in a place where they're not doing something for an entire 8-hour day, but you're trying to break it down in such a way that the workers have less exposure to a very specific job. Another administrative control includes a wet method, certain processes, because they can perhaps generate dust or something that could be unhealthy to the worker. You could also think of the personal hygiene, the housekeeping, perhaps the maintenance. So administrative controls, I know even in that example we used earlier about noise, administrative controls can work as well. So if you have an employee working in a part of the plant where the noise level is very high, where there would be the potential for hearing loss, if you were to rotate those workers, we'll have them only work in the noisy area 1 hour, 2 hours out of the day. that would give them a lower dose of what would be excessive noise, and therefore perhaps bring them down under what would be the OSHA permissible exposure limit for noise. Let's go to the next slide. The final choice would be the personal protective equipment. And again, this is when you have looked at or considered all the other controls. You were unable to remove the hazard, protect the worker. So now we've come to the conclusion that we have to use personal protective equipment to protect these workers. That could be eye protection, would be either safety glasses or goggles, face protection, face shields, head protection, such as hard hats, foot protection, such as safety shoes and footwear, hand and arm protection, think of gloves, body protection could be vest, coveralls, hearing protection could be, as we've said earlier, earplugs or ear muffs. Let's go to the next slide. For any PPE program, you need to establish procedures. You set out procedures for selecting, providing, and using personal protective equipment as part of the employer's routine operation, right? So we're starting to get into the hazard assessment. First, the workplace needs to be assessed to determine if hazards are present and are likely to be present, which necessitate the use of personal protective equipment. Once the proper PPE has been selected, then the employer must provide training to each employee who is required to use the personal protective equipment. Let's go to the next slide. Training. Employees that are required to use PPE, they also must be trained to know at least the following. And this is actually listed in the OSHA regulation. When personal protective equipment is necessary, what type of personal protective equipment is necessary, how to properly put on, take off, adjust, and wear personal protective equipment, the limitations of the personal protective equipment, the proper care, maintenance, useful life, and disposal. So for each of those, I guess I've had companies tell me, well, it's obvious how you would use it. And I would answer that and say, well, I would answer that no, because even something as simple as hearing protection, putting earplugs in, believe it or not, there's a right way to put in earplugs, and there's many wrong ways to do it. And I guess it's not uncommon when I am in a company or a facility and I see people when they're not wearing personal protective equipment properly. So I always point back to the training element, that I understand the company has made the decision, they have to wear PPE, but you should make sure that the employees understand how to use the PPE, at what location, if you don't make the policy plant wide. And again, the requirement for the PPE would be in any place where the hazard would exist. And again, we can talk about that in more detail. I know, again, sometimes companies say, well, we have overhead hazards in the workplace. We have a hard hat requirement, right? They must wear head protection. Okay, well, make sure that you train employees on when they should wear it. Signage is very good, because again, that gives an understanding of this area, the requirement to work in this area, you must wear head protection. But if it's the company policy, again, the training would be very important, because that is when and how you would explain to the employee where they must wear it, for what reason they have to wear it. How to take care of it is also a very important part of PPE. Some of the personal protective equipment, such as respiratory protection, think of like a respirator. If you have employees that wear respirators, there's requirements on how to properly wear it, how to properly maintain it. Does it have a useful life? You know, personal protective equipment would be like any other machine or equipment. It would have a life expectancy. What that is, I wouldn't be able to say specifically, but in most cases with personal protective equipment, it goes a long way. It'll last longer if you take care of it. Now, some PPE is disposable, but not all of it. I mean, most PPE that I can think of, right, you would use again and again and again. But again, if you're not taking proper care of it, or the maintenance, cleaning it, storing it, these are all things that, again, through training, the employees should understand what is expected for them to properly take care of their PPE. Let's go to the next slide. So let's get into some of the, again, examples. Eye protection. And if you were to look in the OSHA book, the regulations are broken out into specific parts of the body. One of them being eye protection. Let's go to the next slide. Said, what are some of the causes of eye injury? And again, these are examples. So it could be dust or other flying particles, such as metal shavings or wood sawdust, molten metal that might splash, acids and caustic liquid chemicals that might splash, blood, and other potentially infectious body fluids that may spray or splatter, intense light, such as that created by welding or lasers. Let's go to the next one. Safety glasses made from metal or plastic frames. Most operations require side shields. So if it's just a regular pair of prescription glasses, most prescription glasses, I wear prescription glasses. I can tell you, my prescription glasses are not safety glasses. They're not rated for that type of use. So that's something you should always be concerned with. If you have a requirement to wear safety glasses in your workplace, make sure that people that have a prescription are not trying to use them as safety glasses unless that's what they are rated for. It says they use for moderate impact for particles produced by such jobs as what would be carpenters, woodworking, grinding, and scaling. Somebody asked, yes, they need to be Z87. That would be a way in which you could verify that the particular safety glasses have been rated. That's what, as an inspector, we would look for something that would either say the word safety glasses, or if it did say that it was rated by the ANSI standard, which is the Z87. Yes, that's a good question. Let's go to the next slide. Safety goggles. Safety goggles are different than safety glasses. So again, a goggle protects the eyes and the eye socket and the facial area immediately surrounding the eye from impact, from dust, from splashes. Safety goggles fit over what would be corrective lenses. So as that example, I know I've had that question before. If a company has safety glasses that are required, right, for their work environment. Does that mean I have to buy prescription safety glasses as a company, right? Is the company responsible to buy those? And the way the OSHA standard reads, it does not. And I can show you some examples as to what personal protective equipment that the employer would be responsible to purchase. But if someone is wearing prescription glasses, they can wear safety goggles over them, and that would be satisfactory. Now, that would be something that the company has to provide. I see somebody said, I don't understand. When you say you don't understand, you're talking about purchase? I
Mark,
couldn't
you
hear.
Mark, you can disregard that message.
Oh, okay. Payment for personal protective equipment, there is within that directive that I included there earlier in the chat, there is a long list of personal protective equipment examples of what the company is responsible to pay for. I always tell people that in most cases, the company, the employer, is responsible to provide personal protective equipment when it is needed in the workplace. But there are exceptions, and I guess I don't know that we have time today to go through each and every one of them. But as an example, if it is something relative to everyday workwear, I know that sometimes has been a question. People say, well, do I have to provide equipment in the workplace under personal protective equipment in every instance? And I said, well, no, not in every instance, but it would be good if you did understand what PPE the company is responsible for. So again, I would refer you to that directive because it does have a breakdown of what PPE the company is responsible to buy, purchase at no cost to the worker, but also it gives a list of PPE that the company is not responsible to purchase, that the employee would have to provide themselves. Let's go to the next slide. Welding shields. If you have welding operations in your work environment, the employees would need to have welding shields to protect their eyes from burns caused by the infrared or intense radiant light, protect the face and the eyes from flying sparks, metal splatter, slag, from welding, brazing, soldering, and cutting. So again, another example of eye protection. Let's go to the next slide. Laser safety. Lasers are a very unique hazard in the workplace. If the company has a laser, it is being used. There is very specific requirements for eye protection. There should be, as you can see in the picture, there's a sign. There's some labeling requirements that there must be signage that so indicates that lasers are in use. Most safety glasses are not rated for laser safety. So if you do have lasers in your workplace, you need to make sure that they are appropriate for the lasers. They protect the eyes from the intense concentration of lasers, the light produced by lasers. So safety glasses have a very specific rating if you're using a laser. So look into that as well, if that happens to be something in your workplace. Let's go to the next one. Face shields. Face shields protect the face from nuisance dust, potential splashes or sprays of hazardous liquids. It says face shields do not protect employees from impact hazards. If you're using a face shield like the one in the picture, yes, I would think if you turn that over and looked at the label that was inside of it, it would very clearly say, this is not rated for impact protection. They do make what would be appropriate shielding that could be worn, and it should very clearly say that this is for impact protection, meaning that, you know, something that would strike you with some force. Again, that should be something that you cover in your hazard assessment of your workplace. Let's go to the next one. Head protection. Head protection is an issue when you have in the workplace something that has the potential to fall or strike someone in the head. Let's go to the next slide. What are some of the causes of head injuries? Falling objects or bumping your head against a fixed object, such as exposed piping or beams. Think of like a low clearance. I know I've walked through factories before, and you're walking along and all of a sudden something is at head level and you don't always see it. And yeah, I've bumped my head before, and luckily I had my hard hat on, and I said, oh, that would have been nice if that would have been more clearly identified, as opposed to just walking by and hitting your head on it. But head protection is important. Let's go to the next slide. There are different types of hard hats. There's type 1, type 2. There's also different classes of hard hats. So a type 1 hard hat is designed to provide protection from impacts to the top of the head. They have a brim that extends over the forehead, which provides protection from falling objects and debris. A type 2 hard hat, which is what you see in the picture, that is designed to provide protection from both impacts to the top and from impacts from the side of the head. It has a larger brim that extends over the forehead and the sides of the head, providing protection from lateral impacts. If you can see, that hard hat does have a chin strap. If it is a type 2 hard hat that has a chin strap, that chin strap must be worn, must be used. The link that I put there, actually, this is something that was an update from our previous presentation on this subject. Just within the last year, OSHA has put out a publication, Safety and Health Information Bulletin. That's what that link goes to. That compliance staff, the OSHA personnel, are switching to the type 2 helmets. These are, I'll say, you're starting to see these more and more in the workplace. And again, the difference between a type 1 and type 2, the type 2 provides protection from side impact. If you are familiar with any of the head injuries, what we have found recently, some of the statistics have shown, if somebody does fall in the workplace, say from an elevated work position, their hard hat usually falls with them. So what we have found is a type 2 helmet actually works better so that it'll stay on your head. And we found people that they suffered head injuries after perhaps falling, and their hard hat came off, and then they, hit their head the second time after they bounced, or, were hanging from a lanyard or harness. And a type 2 helmet provides that additional protection. What I would tell anyone at this time, it is not a requirement to use type 2 helmets. A type 1 helmet without a chin strap is still okay. I know when OSHA put out this picture in the bulletin, there was some confusion. We had a lot of people calling us asking, do I have to switch to this? And at this time, I tell them, no, it's not required to switch. But if you are looking for added protection, perhaps look into what the type 2 helmet would provide. If you're not familiar with the Type 2 helmets, they had been used for years in certain industries. Most people are familiar with maybe what they would look like. They look like a helmet that is used in rock climbing, right? Because again, it's got a chin strap on it. That's going to be the first visual difference you're gonna notice, as it's a hard hat that has a chin strap. And like I said, this is something that perhaps just came out within the last 12 months. So maybe think about or look at hard hats if that's something in your workplace that you would consider. Let's go to the next slide. Hearing protection. Let's go to the next slide. Hearing protection is something that if you are working in an environment that has excessive noise, and as you know, there is a limit as to how much noise an employee may be exposed to in an 8-hour day. That's why, again, going back to where we started, elimination is always your best choice. So if you're working somewhere, and again, to use an example, if you're working in a shop area, machine shop, and most companies have a pneumatic system where they have shop air, right, that may be used for the equipment, portable tools, grinders, things like that. The compressor, the piece of equipment that's actually making the compressed air for you, that is something that does produce a considerable amount of noise, right? It's very loud. It's a piece of machinery that makes a lot of noise. So as this example I'm about to explain, if you have a that is being used for your company, try to locate that air compressor outside of the production area, right? So if you put the air compressor perhaps in a separate room, or it could be outside, again, away from maybe the workspace, and then use piping, hoses, some way to get the compressed air to the workstation, that would be a way of which you are engineering out the problem, right? You're making changes to the workplace so as to remove the hazard from what would be the employee exposure, right? And that would be a long-term fix, because if you've gotten the noise level down and you don't have a noise problem, then the PPE issue perhaps is, no longer a concern. The example I always use with hearing protection, the cost of personal protective equipment can be quite expensive, and especially over time, right? If you're having to buy PPE for workers, the cost of that, if you sat down and figured it out, yeah, that would be perhaps better invested into the company by trying to remove this particular hazard, what we're talking about, a machine that makes too much noise, if we can simply just relocate it. Now, I'm not saying that example works in all cases, right? If you have an employee that, is a machine operator, okay, well, they have to be beside that machine in order to do the work. But maybe some of the collateral, the additional equipment that is needed, doesn't have to be right in that person's workspace. The other thing with noise, and again, going back to maybe some of my college days, noise can actually be controlled as well by distance. So even if you can't put something in another room or outside, even if you move it further away from the employee, that is an improvement, because the noise level is less the farther away physically located from where the worker is. So if the machine can be located across the workspace, that's an improvement as well. So examples of the hearing protection are the muffs on the left, the plugs, or the band type is also one that is sometimes used in the workplace. Each of these could have, they have specific noise reduction rating. That's a number it'll tell you how many decibels that this particular earplug would reduce the noise. So again, these are all considerations you as the employer would want to consider when making a selection. And what OSHA can also points to is if you do have hearing protection in the workplace, you should generally have more than one type for the employees to choose which one they want. Because again, everybody is a little bit different. You know, some people may say, I can't put anything in my ears. So maybe an earplug is not good. Maybe they would need an ear muff. I actually, in my previous work experience, I worked in the aviation industry, and we actually would wear double hearing protection, meaning that we would have earplugs in our ear canal, but then we would also wear ear muffs over them to give us an added protection, simply because of the amount of noise at the airport and around the aircraft. So again, hearing protection, many varieties, but if you can ever reduce the amount of noise, that would be your better option, as opposed to just simply putting people in earplugs. Let's go to the next slide. Foot protection. It's very common in the workplace. People ask, you know, when do I need it? Let's go to the next slide. Foot protection generally would start with if there's a potential for a foot injury, right? What are some of the causes? Heavy objects such as barrels, tools that might roll onto or fall onto an employee's feet. Sharp objects such as nails or spikes that might pierce the sole or uppers of ordinary shoes. Molten metal that might splash hot or wet surfaces or slippery surfaces. So foot protection, that's very common in the workplace. If you have the potential to suffer a foot injury, again, it would be the employer, the company's responsibility to ensure a hazard assessment has been made to establish what personal protective equipment is required, whether it be steel-toe boots, composite footwear. We still say that that's, you know, acceptable. The basic steel-toe safety footwear, that is actually one of the items. Remember that list I told you about? What is the company responsible for? Also, what is the company not responsible for? The steel-toed boot, that is actually one that is listed as the company is not required to purchase safety footwear, steel-toed boot for workers. Now, there are some unique type of footwear that companies would be responsible to buy, but a basic safety toed boot is not one of them. There was a court case many years ago that decided that. So let's go to the next one. Safety shoes, again, impact resistant toes, heat resistant soles, protect workers from hot surfaces, common in roofing and paving and hot metal. Some have metal insoles to protect against punctures, right? Like something coming up that perhaps the employee stepped on. They may be designed to be electrically conductive for the use in explosive atmospheres, or non-conductive to protect workers from workplace electrical hazards. So yes, there is an ANSI standard that would list a particular type of footwear as to what it is capable of. Let's go to the next slide. Metatarsal. I know I was in a factory last week that required metatarsals. That's a part of the shoe or strapped to the outside of the shoe to protect the instep from impact and compression. So as you can see, it has a larger area that is protected. So if something that weighs more, you would want that additional protection beyond just what would be your toes. But again, even metatarsals would not protect you if, you know, something that would fall on your foot. I've seen people with permanent disability type injuries with, you know, things that have fallen, piece of pipe, you know, a large piece of steel. And even with personal protective equipment, it will only protect you so much. So most companies would utilize safety footwear, but there are companies out there that, because of the nature of their work, they're working like in a foundry or a forge where there are large pieces of metal, very heavy pieces of steel. Metatarsals may be required. Let's go to the next slide. Hand protection, very common. Think of all of the things that the workers in your workplace are exposed to, and think about what their hands come into contact with. So let's go to the next slide. What are some of the hand injuries you need to guard against? Burns, bruises, abrasions, cuts, punctures, fractures, amputations, and chemical exposure. And believe me, they make gloves for every one of those that are listed. Let's go to the next slide. Gloves have come a long way. I'll say I've seen many changes in my experience. And most gloves have a very specific type of work environment, like what they would be able to protect against. So again, depending upon what type of work operation you have, as you can see, the first example there at the top looks like a type of chemical glove. Norfil laminate resists permeation and breakthrough by an array of toxic hazardous chemicals. Butyl provides the highest permeation resistance to gas or water vapor. Frequently used, and even, right, this one here even lists the chemical name that it would provide protection against. So when it comes to hand protection and glove selection, I always tell people, if you have a need for hand protection and are looking for gloves, my advice would be, you know, talk to someone who sells that type of equipment, because they will be able to help you if they know exactly what type of work the employee will be exposed to. Let's go to the next one. Viton is a highly resistant permeation by chlorinated or aromatic solvents. Nitrile provides protection against a wide variety of solvents, harsh chemicals. Petroleum products does have excellent, what's it say, resistance to cuts, snags, and punctures. So I guess what I try to tell people is one glove that I don't know of, one glove that would provide protection in all applications, but they do make a glove that would work in any application, if that makes sense, right? So it's not uncommon for people to have different types of gloves. What we run into, what OSHA finds, is that companies will have, you know, one glove, and it's usually it's in most cases not going to be appropriate for all of the applications that they have. So again, when you start making the determination, do I need personal protective equipment? When you do your hazard assessment, this would be that opportunity when you would identify, Do we have people that are exposed to lacerations? Yes. Okay, well then that's probably going to be some type of Kevlar glove. Do we have people that are working with chemicals? Yes. Okay, then you need some type of chemical glove. You know, and the next question, do we have people that are working with chemicals that are corrosive? Yes. Okay, see, that's another type of glove that, so there's many types of glove selections, applications that are out there. And again, it all comes back to our original topic of personal protective equipment. You should always think first, can we eliminate this particular hazard? If not, then can we substitute something to perhaps lessen the impact? Remember that example I gave about the weed killer, right? There's a lot of products out there that are maybe now green, right? The green chemicals, right? The ones that are less hazardous to the environment. That in most cases means it's less hazardous to the worker. So the last thing you would ever want is personal protective equipment. But if it comes down to it, if you still need that, make the right selection so that you're getting the most effective protection. Let's go to the next slide. Kevlar, right, is good for protection against cuts and abrasions. Stainless steel, again, this is very unique. I was just in a company a few months ago, meat packer, right? And that is the exact type of glove that they had, because if you can see in one hand, right, he has a knife and he's sitting there all day and they're using that knife. So on one hand, it looks like he's got a Kevlar glove, the one he's holding the knife with. But if you can see his other hand, right, he has a stainless steel mesh, which provides a much higher level of protection from cuts. Very good illustration as to appropriate PPE. Let's go to the next slide. Body protection. Again, we could, thinking about all the different things that we have to protect here. Let's go to the next slide. Body protection can be protecting people from it's intense heat, splash from hot metals or other hot liquids, impact of tools or machinery or materials, protection from cuts, hazardous chemicals, contact with infectious materials like blood, could be protection from radiation. So again, when we say protection of the body, think of like coveralls, think about a protective suit, whether if it's hazardous material, and there's different levels, level A, level B. But again, it would still all fall into the category of personal protective equipment. Again, you would start with your hierarchy of controls, right? Can we eliminate it? Can we substitute it? Can we engineer out or control the hazard before we simply put people in personal protective equipment? Let's go to the next slide. Body protection, again, as I said, coveralls, different types of suits, level A, level B, sleeves and aprons are very useful. Think of like a laboratory setting, right, where you perhaps are working with materials that can be very caustic or corrosive. And again, the idea is you're protecting the worker so as they do not suffer injury. And most of the PPE that I've seen developed, right, it has over time improved considerably. And the cost, in my opinion, I think the cost has come down. Now, again, I'm not saying that it's cheap, because again, you're having to make it available. It has to fit properly. It's not all one size fits all. But again, if you can't eliminate the hazard, substitute something that would be less hazardous, engineer out the problem, you know, if you're getting to the point where you have to put PPE on people, make sure that it's appropriate for the type of work that they're doing. Let's go to the next slide. Fall protection. Fall protection falls into the category as well. PPE, as you can see, the examples I include a harness, 6-point harness. There's some examples of anchorage there at the bottom. The anchor is the way in which you are attaching the connector or the lanyard, as you can see on the right side. That is a dual self-retracting lanyard. It's got two connectors. And again, application, many different varieties of fall protection, harness, lanyard, anchorage out there. I was just at an event last week, and because we just participated and celebrated the National Fall Prevention Week, and being that fall protection is so important, a leading cause of injury and fatality in construction is still falls. We have so many falls every year, and we're trying to educate people more on the different types of fall protection. So still that personal protective equipment topic, fall protection is very important. Let's go to the next one. In summary, I know we're moving right along here, but looking at what we've talked about so far, right? The employer company must implement a PPE program where they first assess the workplace for hazards. That actually written into the OSHA standard, it does say the word, it must be written and certified, right? That hazard assessment that I've mentioned a few times has to be in writing, and it says the word certified. That certified means that somebody has to put their name on it and date it, who did the hazard assessment and when was it done. They must use engineering and workplace controls to eliminate or reduce hazards before using PPE. So again, that's that you have to make that judgment. And if you cannot eliminate or reduce the hazard, then you would, yes, make the decision to use personal protective equipment. And if that happens, then you would select appropriate PPE to protect the workers. The next step, right? Inform the employees why PPE is necessary and when it must be worn, right? This would all be part of that training requirement. Train the employees on how to use it, how to care for it, and how to recognize when it is deteriorated or if it has failed. Again, remember we talked about that life expectancy. Personal protective equipment, it will last a long time if you take care of it in most cases, but some of it, if it's something as simple as, disposable earplugs, yeah, that it's probably not going to last very long at all. But if it's something that would be stored properly, something that would be cleaned at the end of the shift, like, think of a good pair of chemical resistant gloves. Yeah, they could last a long time. Right. So as from the company's perspective, they don't have to buy more. So taking care of the PPE is very important. And even the manufacturers of the PPE, they will tell you that, it will last longer if you take care of it, store it properly, clean it when it needs to be cleaned, as opposed to just leaving it laying on the ground or, throwing it in the back of the truck. I guess from my understanding, when talking to people that make PPE, the first thing they tell you is, if possible, don't leave it out in the sunlight, because that is one of the things that will cause it to break down quicker, right, it'll begin to degrade, and the useful life is much less. So require the employees to wear the selected PPE in the workplace. Don't let the employee tell you things like, I choose not to wear it. that you can't do that. And I only say that because I had a worker one time. I think I asked him, where's your safety boots at? Because he was wearing tennis shoes, and he goes, I don't like them. They hurt my feet. And I'm going, okay, well, you can't do that. I pointed out to the company that if you're requiring people to wear safety-toed footwear, you have to enforce that. You can't allow the employee to say, well, I choose not to wear it, because again, the company is responsible to protect the worker. And if that isn't happening, then the company has to suggest, well, as a condition of your employment, if you can't follow the rules and the policies that we have set, then you can't work in this workplace, right? We have to either move you to another job, or, you have to find another job. Let's go to the next slide. The quick takes, I always try to point this out. Again, it's a electronic newsletter. We try to get information out to the companies or people that are subscribed. Again, that's just simply putting your email. Go to the web link here at the bottom and you type in your email, and we'll send out the newsletter to you. It comes out every 2 weeks. Go to the next slide. And I did want to mention that there is a new address. We have relocated the OSHA office in Erie. We had been downtown for about 20 years, and we have recently moved to a new office location up near the Mill Creek Mall, just off of Zook, if you know where that's at in Erie. Let's go to the next slide. I also wanted to point out that last week they actually announced a new regional OSHA map, and this is just a picture of it. Not a lot of changes, no changes where we're at here in Pennsylvania, but they shuffled, I'll say, the regional map a little bit. So if that's something that you need more information on, I can talk to you later, or you can look on the OSHA webpage and read the press release on it. But again, that's haven't seen the regional map change since I've been working for OSHA. So that was sort of a big announcement. Let's go to the next one. I believe is my disclaimer. It's a legal requirement. I have to put this in as to tell you that I am a OSHA compliance assistant, and as much as I want to be accurate and telling you everything, if I did make a mistake, I apologize, and I'll try to correct it. But let's go to the next one. Anybody have any questions? My email address is at the bottom, as I hopefully I'm always available to answer emails. I'm not always in the office, so I can't say that I'll always pick up the phone, but if you do have questions, and I believe Cindy had mentioned earlier, we are always looking for new topics. So when we put the program together for next year, we get some input from the audience. So yeah, if you have an OSHA topic you want us to put together an OSHA training session on, be very happy to do that. Shoot me an email if you'd like to talk more. I'd be happy to do that as well. But I think that's all I have. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Dave.
Okay, Cindy, thanks a lot.
Yep.
My name's Dave Yanoschick from the OSHA Consultation Program out of IUP. Go ahead, Cindy, the next slide. What OSHA Consultation is, OSHA, it's designed for small businesses, and every state in the country has an OSHA Consultation Program. Here in Pennsylvania, the OSHA Consultation Program is based out of Indiana University of Pennsylvania, IUP, And essentially it's a free safety and health services for small businesses here in the Commonwealth. And if you're like me, when you hear free, you probably think, yeah, right, nothing's free, somebody's paying for it. And the answer to that is it's actually funded by federal OSHA. So just as OSHA provides money to the area offices for compliance assistance, like Mark does, OSHA enforcement, they also provide money to the state for these free services for small businesses. And essentially, the theory behind that is when the OSHA regulations came about, obviously now you have, hey, starting tomorrow, all these businesses have to comply with these new regulations, and smaller businesses may not have the in-house expertise to deal with that and help understand them as you would in a larger business. So once again, we're designed to just go out and provide this compliance assistance on site to the small businesses. And when we say small businesses, what we're talking about are businesses with less than 250 employees at the site, at the establishment, and less than 500 corporate wide. I can tell you the vast amount of businesses that we visit are significantly less than 250. Most are probably in the 10 to 20 employees at the site range. So don't think that you're so small that we wouldn't service you. That's actually who we're more so geared to assist. And when we provide assistance, because there is a high demand for the service, we're specifically going to give some priority to employers in higher hazard industries involved in particularly hazardous operations, and even probably more specifically, businesses that we have not visited in the past and haven't utilized the service. For businesses that are a little bit larger, we can still service them. We just have to limit the scope a little bit. So we're not going to necessarily look at everything from a safety and health standpoint, but we may stick to a particular topic. Go ahead, Cindy, the next slide. Here's on this slide, it talks a little bit about the types of safety and health services we perform. And once again, it's all free. Kind of our bread and butter are physical hazard evaluations. We're essentially a business who put in a request for us to come on site and do a walkthrough of the workplace. And full or limited just means full is we're kind of looking at everything. Limited means we're sticking to one particular topic, building, focal area. You as the employer who puts a request in for the service, you're in charge of what we're there to look at. So you're in charge of this for the visit. We establish that as soon as we start. For example, a limited scope may be based off of Mark's conversation here about personal protective equipment. You may say, hey, look, we'd like to have you guys out and do a walkthrough of our workplace, but we really want to focus on personal protective equipment. Do we appear to be utilizing the proper PPE for our work operations? Does it look like it's the correct PPE? So not necessarily is it the right type of PPE, is it the right PPE for the exposure? Are the employees utilizing it properly? Are we doing the right training? So that would be an example of a limited scope service, which we could come out and look at that. Additionally, some things we do is industrial hygiene exposure monitoring, written program assessment and development assistance. Once again, as it relates to PPE, personal protective equipment, the employer is required to do a PPE hazard assessment and document that and certify it, meaning somebody signs it and dates it saying, yes, we did this assessment for this work task on this date, and here's who did it. We have templates for that. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel relative to that assessment. We can give you a template as a guide where you could go through, fill it out, sign it, date it, and you're good to go. We also do some training assessment, so we could look at the PPE training or whatever the topic is, training you're interested in, look at what you're currently doing, determine if it's compliant with the OSHA regulation, and make recommendations for you to improve that, and or provide you with templates for those trainings, written programs, whatever it may be. So once again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to start from scratch with that stuff. We also do some post-OSHA inspection compliance assistance, meaning a business has an OSHA inspection, they get cited. The employer and OSHA has come to an agreement on, hey, here's the citation, here's going to be the monetary penalty, if anything. Once everybody agrees on that stuff, now you as the employer have some due dates from enforcement where they want some correction verification. You just may need some assistance on how to do that, what you need. Maybe if it's a program, a training, you're looking for some resources there, we can come out and help provide that to you as well on post-OSHA inspection. We also do some safety and health management system evaluation for some of those businesses that are more advanced or looking to become more advanced. What they ask us to come out and is assess their overall safety and health management system. So, how are you dealing with employees from a compliance standpoint, proactively managing safety and health? So we evaluate what you're doing and then provide you some recommendations there. Also offsite, daily, we take telephone calls, you can email, and we also offer presentations, webinars, seminars based off of various topics. And then we can also do some stuff virtually, be it training, some of the program evaluations and things, we can do that remotely. Go ahead, Cindy, the next slide. There you go. All of our consultants that you have that would work with you as the employer, we're all faculty in the safety science department at IUP. We're 100% board certified safety professionals, industrial hygienists. And I point that out just so you would know you're getting a seasoned, competent safety and health professionals coming out to help you. We average 20 years professional safety and occupational experience. Everybody in the OSHA consultation program prior to coming to IUP in the faculty has worked in the private sector. So we've all been safety reps for insurance companies, safety managers in industry, safety project managers from a construction standpoint. So we all have private industry and construction backgrounds. And then we're strategically located throughout PA. I know that most of the folks on this webinar here are probably Northwestern PA based, and that's fine. We have consultants throughout the state that are faculty at IUP that just do this and service the small businesses. Go ahead, Cindy. If you put a request in for service, it's 100% confidential. Meaning when you put a request in via either telephone or online or our website, that information does not get shared with anyone. So even Mark working out of the OSHA Erie office, they don't have access to that stuff. Any request you put in, any work that we do for you, it's just between the two of us. And it's actually from a regulatory standpoint, it's protected from OSHA enforcement, lawyers pursuing liability cases. The written report that we provide to you, we supply it to you. You can do whatever you want with it that meets your needs, but we don't maintain copies. Past the point, specifically what we're concerned with is if there's anything you have to correct for us from a serious hazard standpoint, from the time frame that you correct that, we close those hazards. We maintain an electronic copy of those reports for about 3 years just to comply with Pennsylvania record retention. And then after that period of time, we purge all that stuff. So like I said, any request you put in, any service we provide, that's between you and us, and we don't provide it to anybody else, specifically to your business. Go ahead, Cindy, the next slide. Even though OSHA is kind of in our title, OSHA consultation, unlike enforcement, we don't issue citations, fines, penalties, anything like that. You have to request the service. So we're never just going to show up like enforcement was. You have to ask for us to come out. And when you do, the agreement that we would have with you is if we identify a serious hazard, you have to agree to correct that. And typically the way we correct that is just we provide you with documentation in your written report where you would, by the due date that we come up with, provide us confirmation that you've corrected the hazard, and that's just written confirmation. We go ahead and close it, and then everybody moves on. A benefit to that is if you engage us and agree to correct any serious hazard we would find within the scope that we've defined, while you're working on correcting those hazards, you're exempt from programmed OSHA inspections, meaning those random inspections. So let's say you engage us, we come out and do a visit, we've identified some hazards, a couple of them are serious, you're working on correcting them, and then 2 days later, OSHA enforcement comes out and you say, hey, why are you guys here? And they say, well, you're part of this emphasis program for amputations, for example. And let's say amputations hazards was included in the scope of our visit. You could just tell them because they wouldn't know. You would tell them, hey, we actually are working with PA OSHA consultation right now, and we're working on correcting some items. And we provide you documentation to show that. And if that's the only reason they're there is for that program inspection, they leave. So they've essentially, that's kind of the give back to you as the employer for being proactive and trying to control these hazards. prior to enforcement coming out, they'll exempt you from those program inspections. Go ahead, Cindy, the next slide. Just something else I'd like to mention. We also have a program here in Pennsylvania for businesses that have demonstrated their ability to effectively manage safety and health. It's called SHARP. That's a Safety and Health Achievement Recognition Program. I kind of handle those specifically for the state myself. So if anybody has any interest in that, feel free to reach out to me directly, and I could talk with you specifically about that program. Once again, it's a recognition program for businesses that have achieved excellence in managing safety and health. And a bonus to that is not only the recognition that you would get that would go along with that, while you're in that program, you're exempt from all programmed OSHA enforcement inspections while you're actively a participant in good standing. So go ahead, Cindy, the next slide. Just additionally, we've recently started to assess some construction job sites for inclusion in SHARP as well. So if any of the participants here are in the construction industry, once again, that's something we can speak to. Feel free to reach out to me, and I can walk you through that process. Go ahead, Cindy, the next slide. Regarding requesting assistance, you can see our website there. There is our phone number. If any of you in the past had seen our 1-800 number, that no longer exists. So we're using that 724-357 number. So you can go online, put a request in, feel free to phone us, put a request in. And what would essentially happen is once that request gets entered, one of our admins will assign your request based off of what you're requesting service-wise. And then geographically where you're located within the state, they assign that to a consultant. And then after that, you're working independently with the consultant to schedule a date and time and work through the process. Go ahead, Cindy. There's just on our website there's the link for submitting your free consultation. Go ahead to the next slide. We also have some testimonials on our website, and these are businesses that have utilized the service in the past, where we went out and kind of filmed them in short video clips, just kind of talking about their experiences utilizing the service. So you can hopefully use the employer to kind of give you just an added level of comfort, and specifically if you recognize some of those business names. Go ahead, Cindy, the next slide. Additionally, I'd just like to mention there's other free safety and health training resources out there. One of them that some of you may or may not have heard of is called PATHS. It's a great training resource run out of the State Department of Labor and Industry. They do a ton of different topics. Some of it they'll come on site and do. A lot of them they do via webinar. Very hazard specific or industry specific. So I'd recommend take a look at their website and look at their training calendars and reach out to them for some free safety and health training needs if you so desire. Go ahead, Cindy, the next slide. That's the end there. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in chat. If you'd like to get a hold of me directly, there's my email, daveyano@iup.edu. And thanks a lot, Cindy, for permitting me to participate.
Well, thanks, Dave, and thanks, Mark. We appreciate both of you, and the information was incredible. Thank you so much. While I finish up, if there's any questions, feel free to enter them into the chat or the Q&A. As I mentioned, we will be sending out the slides shortly after today, as well as the recording once it's ready to go. And finally, we just ask that you complete the survey that will receive as well today, and give us a chance to, take some time and let us know what specific topics you're looking for. That would be helpful. We do read the evaluations. So with that, Mark and Dave, thank you so much for being with us. And I'll be sending out the information for our next one as well, coming up next month. All right, everyone, thank you so much and have a great day.